And now to our discussion segment. At the weekend, the military regimes in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger on Sunday announced their immediate withdrawal from the Economic Community of West African States, Ecowas, saying it has become a threat to member states, although coming as the Ecowas Commission says it's yet to receive any direct formal notification from the three member states about their intention to withdraw from the community. Our conversation on the program this morning is on the business implication of the three countries leaving ECOWAS. We have joining us from Kaduna, Associate Professor Eugene Obiora, Eugene of the Department of History and War Studies, Nigerian Defense Academy, Kaduna. Also joining us is Ibrahim Yahaya from Arewa Economic Forum and member Nigeria Business Forum, who joins us also from Kano. Welcome to both of you, gentlemen.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, very good morning, and thank you for joining us. Well, let's begin by you giving us your view on the ECOWAS says it has not received any notification from the three member states. If it eventually does, what do you think will be the fate of bilateral trade between the three countries and the ECOWAS member countries? Let's start with Ibrahim Yahaya.
Well, this is what we'll call the failure of diplomacy on the part of the ECOWAS and part of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu as the chairman of the ECOWAS Commission, ECOWAS committee that placed the sanctions against this Niger Republic. We've made several calls at different times that Nigeria and indeed the West African sub-region is facing a lot of economic problems based on what has happened in Niger. And this recent development was brought about by the failure of the ECOWAS to meet up with an agreed meeting that was scheduled to hold in Niger. And they gave a flimsy excuse of having logistic problems, which made the three nations to come up with this threat. We've made several pronouncements on the kind of losses that the Nigerian business community, especially people that live in the 7 contiguous states that are bordering Niger Republic, estimation is about 13 billion per week. And we're getting to how many months now this thing has been happening. And the economic situation has been exacerbated by this issue of fuel price increase and the attendant inflation that has been bedeviling the nation. And the poverty situation in those border regions has been something very drastic. And in fact, yesterday and day before yesterday, since this thing happened, we've been making contacts with our people there. And what we're getting, the information we're getting from there is that people are becoming more desperate because of the fact that their livelihoods are being curtailed by the simple reason that they can't cross to the other side and other people cannot cross to this side. And I think the ECOWAS Commission and the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu should remember that this problem is more on the Nigerian side than on the other side, because these nations, they depend on Nigeria for their daily needs. Anybody that knows that Nigeria is the biggest economy in West Africa, and the whole West African sub-region, and to some extent the Central African sub-region, depends on Nigeria on their daily needs. So I think with the call that we will make, we have made it before, and we will continue making it, that the ECOWAS Commission and the world community should look at targeting sanctions against the people that are causing this, not making the poor people of these both regions, that's Nigeria and the southern part of Nigeria, to suffer the consequences of some few misguided elements in Niger Republic.
Okay, let's bring Professor Eugene into this conversation. Professor Eugene, specifically, what will be the impact for Nigeria?
I want to get you very specific. Is it the economic or political or what
the
impact?
Economic impact. There's a business program, so we want to see the economic and financial ramifications to this particular move by these three countries.
Well, at the initial, ECOWAS in 1975 was established as an economic union. And if you see what has been happening since then, the ultimate goal of getting the member states in West Africa to form ECOWAS and achieve objective, it doesn't seem to have been achieved because the French and Anglophone speaking countries, they don't seem to agree in a lot of things. So in this very case, you discover that whatever is the level of trade or commerce between these three countries that are pulling out and their contiguous neighbors who have littoral boundaries with the coast of West Africa, whatever is the trade, as the man in the studio said, is going to suffer a lot because politics determines economics or trade, and economics also determines politics. You cannot detach both of them. If ECOWAS and these countries are not on good terms, there is no way the trade between Nigeria and these three states, there's no way the commerce and trade between them will either appreciate or be normal as it is. So we're going to see a situation where whatever has been achieved over the years in terms of trade is going to be lost because they are now strange bedfellows. They cannot talk to each other on a very comfortable platform. So they are pulling out. It's going to create some. If there's any benefit Nigeria is having from trading with them,
there's of course a lot of benefit when you consider the relationship between border communities. There's a lot of businesses, trade going on there. Now, how do you think this action will shape the relationship between Niger and Nigeria? Will Nigerians require visa permit before coming or going out of Nigeria?
Well, ECOWAS has said that they have not formally written them to tell them they are pulling out. They took a unilateral decision. And you know,
but eventually, when they do so, how do you think it will shape the relationship between Niger and Nigeria?
It is going to impact because since the Niger coup, let me be specific with Niger. Nigeria has closed its borders with Niger. Any business going there is behind the scene. It's not normal. It's not formal. So whatever, and the relationship between our border communities and the Nigerian people is going to create a lot of ripples because it will create some strain between communication of Nigerians in Nigeria and Nigerians in Niger. And I don't think that is very good for trade and commerce between the two countries.
Okay. Ibrahim Yahya, how would you,
Yes.
I mean, free movement, how would you assess with what is happening with the development now? Free movement between Niger and Nigeria, how do you think it should be handled under the ECOWAS treaty now?
Well, the ECOWAS Treaty, as the professor rightly said, was created to have free movement of goods and services across the whole West African sub-region. And over the years, we've had so many initiatives to establish and make sure that that charter is well established. In Nigeria, we have the K2M, Kano Katsina Maradi Trade Corridor. We have the Konni and Lela Trade Corridor. We have the Kongolam Zindel Trade Corridor, and so many other ones. But the situation is now that once this thing is formalized, that the three countries have left ECOWAS, well, that means any person from any of the countries going to another country needs a visa. And as I said, we have 7 states in Nigeria that have a contiguous border with the Niger Republic. One funny thing and very disturbing thing that has happened recently is the fact that Niger Republic has signed a cooperation agreement with Algeria to move goods, to start using the Algerian ports to move goods from Algeria to Niger. So Nigeria is looking for an alternative to the sea. The thing is that all the 3 of these countries are landlocked, and they need the ECOWAS countries to move their goods and services from the ports to their respective countries. But now that they are getting alternatives. You see, in business, once you close one door, the customer will look for another door. It doesn't matter whether the door is going to be very expensive. The issue is convenience and the reliability. Now that these countries are looking for alternatives to the West African coast, I think it's something that if care is not taken, we will lose so much revenue. And it's not going to be Nigeria alone. These countries depend on Cote d'Ivoire, depends on Togo and Benin Republic to move their goods from the West African coast to their side, to their respective countries. Now they are looking for alternative. 2 weeks ago, Niger signed a defense pact with Russia, and recently one of their ministers has traveled to Iran for another bilateral cooperation. And all this is marking of Nigeria losing its influence as the major player in Africa and West African subcontinent. In fact, in West Africa is a superpower. So if the countries are looking for alternatives, that means Nigeria is going to lose out. What I want to the federal government and the Ecowas Commission to understand is that the 7 states that we are talking about in Nigeria, we are talking about a population of about 13 million that lives on the northern part of Nigeria, the extreme northern part of Nigeria. And if we add about 17 million that are on the extreme southern part of the Niger Republic, we're talking about a population of about 45 million that are a key market, and that market is being lost by simple lack of adequate diplomacy.
Okay,
the Nigerian government should understand.
Okay, how can the situation be better handled by ECOWAS?
The instrangers of ECOWAS. I think what ECOWAS should understand is that the economy and politics are determined by the needs of the people. That those policies, whatever policies you are going to put, it should be determined by what is best for those people, not what is best for some certain interests. As at now, I was in your program some weeks ago, and I mentioned the fact that these borders are imaginary borders, because these contiguous borders are populated by people that have been ancestrally related, and their lives are continuously, they do their lives continuously together. So if there is anything that has happened, it's something that's imaginary to them. But the implication now is that the governments on both sides have put strong measures to curtail the movement of goods and services between those people. And this has exacerbated the poverty situation. You should remember that these areas are areas bedeviled by Boko Haram and banditry. From Sokoto up to Borno State, they are bedeviled by banditry and Boko Haram. So it's a region that has been fought with poverty and insecurity. Now, with this attendant problem of lack of trade and means of livelihood, their poverty situation has risen to astronomical level, and we are looking at a situation whereby people will be desperate to join forces that are inimical to the growth of Nigeria and Niger Republic. Because based on stories that we've had, people are joining this kind of banditries and for as mere as 10,000, 20,000 naira. So if you stop people from trading, from earning their livelihood, it's going to be very bad for the security situation of both countries. And I think the two and the leaders should look for the people first.
Okay, let me, Eugene, with this development, how do you think that ECOWAS should handle this situation? And looking at the fact that we also have the AFCFTA, how do we stop that from affecting the AFCFTA?
Well, I think this is a very complex and unfortunate development. Complex in the sense that there are a lot of lose or gain from this development. And it's also a very dangerous thing, because Africa as a continent with the AFTA arrangement can only prosper if the member states try to be multilateral and consensus in their approach of the West African sub-region. But when you have a situation where they speak from different perspectives and interests. It creates a problem to solve this type of pull-out by these three countries. But I will say, terminally, that Nigeria, whatever it does, should be guided by the before you suffice. Yes, you can, we are Nigerians first before we become ECOWAS members, then African, then United Nations. From national, sub-regional, regional, then global. So anything the Nigerian government should do now, which is chairing ECOWAS, should be to protect the interests of the Economic Community of West African States and achieve its objectives generally. Then in particular, Nigeria leader, our president, should have our national interest in mind, because he will lead the ECOWAS presidency one day and still remain Nigerian president. So whatever we are doing must be focused on taking our economic national interest, that of Nigeria, first, while we pursue that of...
I'm afraid, Associate Prof. Eugene, we will have to leave it there. Thank you very much for sharing your thought with us. And Ibrahim Gayaha from Area Economic Forum, thank you very much for sharing your thought with us.